Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the New Delhi Hub of the Global Shapers community, I would like to welcome you to this Shaping Davos event on the power of the platform as a business model. Global Shapers is a network of hubs developed and led by young people who are exceptional in their potential, achievements, and drive to make a contribution to their communities. We in the Delhi Hub are contributing to shaping Davos by bringing the perspective of our city to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. Along with Berlin, Giza, and Bangalore, we are one of the 4 cities in the world participating in the session on platform models. Our partner for today's event is the Vedica Scholars Program for Women, which is a unique alternative to the traditional MBA program designed to build women leaders. I read an article recently that stated, Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. And Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. Something interesting is happening. The platform as a business model is behind the rapid rise of companies that are reshaping various sectors in cities around the world. In our discussions today, we will be touching upon several dimensions of this topic, including how platforms are changing company and consumer mindsets, as well as corporate social responsibility. To help us explore these aspects, we have a distinguished panel here with us. Some of our panelists are currently leading successful platform businesses in India. Ms. Ritu Kapur is the co-founder and CEO of the Quint, which is a mobile-first news site in English and Hindi. Just 9 months after its launch, the Quint was ranked among the top 10 technology startups in the world to watch out for by the Reuters Institute. From Uber India, we have Mr. Prabhjeet Singh, who is the head of strategy and planning. Within just 5 years of its existence, Uber had more than 1 million active drivers operating in 330 cities, including 22 cities in India, and a valuation greater than that of General Motors. We're also privileged to have with us Mr. Vijay Shekhar Sharma, who is the founder and CEO of Paytm. Paytm is a pioneer in the online payment space in India, with over 100 million users. Platform models are also disrupting education in India. Mr. Zishaan Hayath is the co-founder of Topper.com, an online preparation platform for entrance exams, which has already been used by over 600,000 students. While platform businesses are achieving tremendous success in a range of sectors, they also face certain challenges, especially in the legal and regulatory space. To shed light on these issues, we will be joined on the panel by Mr. Ajay Bahl, who is the co-founder and managing partner of AZB and Partners. The world of business has been transformed several times over the years. To share his perspective on how platform models are affecting traditional industries, we have Mr. Jain, who is the CEO of Times Group and has previously held senior leadership positions in various organizations, including Hindustan Unilever, Whirlpool India, and Walmart India, where he was the president and CEO. Our moderator for today's discussion is Dr. Pramath Sinha, who was a partner at McKinsey & Company before he became the managing director and CEO of Anand Bazar Patrika and subsequently founded 9.9 Media. He has been instrumental in launching several programs and institutions in education, including the Indian School of Business, Ashoka University, and most recently, the Vedica Scholars Program for Women. The key insights from today's event will be incorporated into a global white paper that will be published by the World Economic Forum. For those of you who will be tweeting during the event, please use the Shaping Davos and Shaping Platforms hashtags, as the tweets will be curated by WEF for stimulating the discussions in Davos. With that, I would now like to hand over to Dr. Sinha for the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, braving the traffic this evening. I would like to first quickly get from some of the people who are building these so-called platforms a more clearer definition of what is it that your platform does in terms of sort of disrupting earlier business models. I think everybody kind of gets it, but it will be nice to hear that from your perspective. Is as you look at your businesses, what is it that it is doing to more traditional business models? And maybe we can start with you, Prabhjeet, and just go down the length of this stage in terms of who's doing what. And then we can come back and discuss some of the other aspects of this. So, and as you talk about this, if you could talk about what is it doing for consumers, and what implications does it have for you in terms of running a business, right? And I think each of you will come at it differently, and Ritu, maybe you can talk a little bit about what it means from a content perspective as well. Sure. So Prabhjeet, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. The way we see our vision, both globally and in India, is to try and create a transportation system which is affordable, convenient, and reliable. It's as easy as just pushing a button and getting a ride. That's eventually what we want to do, and want to do it in a way which will make sure that we have riders who are able to get a ride in less than 5 minutes. We have drivers who are able to make sure they are getting more earning opportunities, and an asset which is in the middle, which typically is used only 4% of the time, which is a vehicle, which is a car, gets utilized to the maximum. That's at the core of the platform which Uber is building and has scaled up globally now to more than 400 cities. If I take a stakeholder view of the 4 stakeholders involved in this, the rider, the driver, the asset, and Uber, what each one of them is bringing to the table and what they are getting. What a rider gets is ability to get access to a vehicle which is otherwise impossible for him to know. Traditionally, taxi systems have existed. They have existed for ages. Either they have been very limited in number, or in places where they are, you do not have an ability to know where they're easily available. Either you'll have to block a vehicle for a long period of time. For example, in India, most of us, up to a few years back, would block a vehicle for 4 hours or 8 hours, which almost was the standard lingo in the taxi industry, while you would require the vehicle only for 30 minutes. So now the rider, A, doesn't pay for what asset he or she doesn't utilize. B, he or she is able to get it at the click of a button. C, he or she actually will end up paying significantly lesser, in many cases up to 30 to 70% lower, because the asset is being utilized only for that period of time. If I move to the other stakeholder, which on the other side of the platform, which is Uber, are the drivers. Now the drivers in this case could be licensed drivers, or actually people like you and I who are going from point A to point B. And because we believe in the social cause of reducing pollution, or because we also believe that we can contribute to just having a good conversation with somebody, we may decide to offer our vehicle for transferring from point A to point B. But in the past, if I wanted to do that, either as a traditional driver or as a commuter, I won't know where is the demand, where is the customer. Now that's what the platform is enabling. By being on the platform, he or she, as a driver, would get which is the nearest demand source. So he or she is not waiting more than they require to start the trip. As a result, you're not wasting time, you're utilizing the asset. The third stakeholder asset we spoke about, I won't get into. From an Uber perspective, now our job, we see ourselves as just a facilitator on this platform. We need to make sure, unlike a traditional model, and we'll hear more on that, traditionally, a business like this would have been a pipe model, very different from a platform model. A pipe model creates value upstream and pushes it downstream. It says, okay, let me look at a customer. Here's a product. In the traditional case, it would have been a taxi. Let me find customers and push it to them. In a platform model, we actually look at 2 kinds of customers, both the rider and the driver. So our job is to make sure we are creating a product or an experience which keeps both of them in play. Which means, how do I create a platform which the drivers find convenient to come onto? In India, the challenge we have is around literacy. How do I create a product which is easy to use, even for somebody who has never used a smartphone, who has never used navigation before, who's probably not literate and has not gone to school. So how do I create a product which will make it convenient for him or her to come? How do I create an economic proposition which makes him or her commit 6 to 10 hours a day on the platform? That's one side. The second side is for the riders, which is again create a seamless experience. So we at Uber think of ourselves as the facilitator and just creating this network effect. Very different from what a pipe business would have been. And that at the heart of it is what a platform business does.
Good, thanks so much. That really sets the tone for it. Vijay, Shekhar, would you like to go next? And I think what you are creating is a platform which is actually at a platform to all of these platforms.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Interestingly, platform businesses have is a network effect. The two sides are the important element there.
So explain what you mean by that.
Meaning, we just now heard Prabh saying that there was buyer and there was seller, and traditionally there are one-way businesses. The sellers are suppliers and somebody is front-ending to the buyer.
Correct.
Typically like in a retail shop, when you walk into Pantaloon store, you do not know who is maker of it. Or your relationship with the maker is none, you're effectively buying from Pantaloon and you do not know whom you're buying from literally. So versus a platform where there are two platforms. Now let me talk about Paytm as a platform there and how there are two other stakeholders for us too. So payment traditionally have been, imagine there are payments. Your money in the bank is handed over to you by bank either by cash, which is a payment token that you show to the B party and understand, oh yeah, governor signed it, I'll accept it. Or a check, oh yeah, you signed it, I'll accept it. Or debit card or a credit card or RTGS and so on, the elements there. So traditionally the money has been locked in the bank and you've been handed over very two fast transaction platform, one being cash and one being card, right? Obviously I'm removing the paper check because there is not instant value to it, so you would not go into a shop and issue the checks unless there is an extraordinary scenario. Now this system of card has issuer, the one who issues the card, and acquirer who issues these machines, the POS machines that you see. The very reason the payment has not worked digitally in this country is that because there are enough number of cards, if you know, most of us have debit cards and they all have Visa Master stamp on it, so they are as payment instrument as a credit card would be. But the problem is that there are not enough places to swipe that card. When you go to, let's say, a local Kirana store, the person doesn't necessarily have a POS. I think we live in metro cities, so there are sometimes chances, but that is also not as prevalent as we would expect. And inherent reason for this business model has been, it was built in 70s and 80s, that you would have one side building distribution of cards, another side building distribution of machines to accept. Now how the new age platform that Paytm changes this is, that we are the platform where the buyer, the person who wants to pay also has a phone and the person who wants to accept also has a phone. So neither we have to issue the plastic card nor we have to issue the POS machine. We just have to ask each one of them, do you want to pay each other? Bang, bang, you're out. Literally, or ping, ping, you're out. Whichever way you Paytm, you're out. So the point is that there is an efficiency in the ecosystem because these two costs not being built, and there is a cut of many more middle parties and layers. You know, ICICI Bank, Visa card, plastic, Axis Bank, Ingenico machine maintained by shopkeeper. You know how many players are there? That is why the payment cost so high to the shopkeeper that it ends up becoming 2.5% in a very high scale volume. In fact, you know what the cost of money acceptance using Paytm wallet for the merchant is? If you are a merchant and if you are receiving money using a consumer's Paytm wallet to your Paytm wallet, if this is 2.5%, it is 0. Why? Because there is nothing, it's a table data movement from one data point to another data point, so we just pay 0% TDR, which is the differential payment, and everybody can accept money. And that has been the incredible thing that once we went to the physical world and we offered our value proposition, the POS machine of Paytm is nothing but a QR code sticker. So any shop can put a QR code sticker which identifies themselves, or you have a phone number, you can send money to that. We saw in Bangalore, some petrol pump had put a standee, we do not accept cash or card, we only accept Paytm wallet. And this was tweeted to me, that is how I figured. And then we saw it, some auto drivers were saying that, oh, you can give me this money if you don't have a change. The TV ad, in case you might have seen, every use case has been anecdotally told to us by a consumer. That is why we put them up, so that there is a sort of affinity of someone that I know that it happened next to me. Now, what you're seeing in this case, as we just now heard, was that the platform had changed from the traditional world of multi-party, multi-tenant, multi-ecosystem players to a end consumer, end merchant, and merchant is also a customer in this case, because we are taking care of the cost of him to be changed. And that creates a totally new business model, disrupts the model and costs to a very different level, and becomes good for consumer and merchant both, right? And I think now when you go out and you have a wallet, you can keep tapping or ping, ping, tang, tang, bang, bang.
Thank you for that. If I can change my own sequence for a minute, because I want to go to Raj. Raj, when the two of them are talking, I'm reminded of all the scars we have on our backs from building businesses and running businesses through the 80s and 90s, and you know, Ajay is smiling there too. Do you get the sense that things are really getting simplified? I mean, from what these guys are talking about, a lot of the infrastructure bottlenecks are getting removed, leapfrogged. Do you have that sense? Wouldn't you love to have some of this in the days you were running businesses? I mean, you are still running a business, but in the old days.
Yeah, I said here about platforms and see what's happening. Call it, you know, Uberization of the business world, call it whatever, you know. I think it's sucking away a lot of, or providing a lot of productivity to asset which was not utilized. You know, I still remember when I used to run in a factory, and we used to only run the day shift, and my boss used to always tell me, the machine we've bought is idle at night, and it's not producing anything, while my money in the bank, I'm still paying them interest on 24-hour basis. So, you know, it was kind of an interesting concept in those days. But today, I think, you know, with the platform businesses and the digital technology which enables this, I think you can actually, you know, literally utilize any asset of any kind, 24/7, and across various people who happen to be convenient, or call it whatever. So I think it's an outstanding way that digitization of these platforms and availability, I think, will improve the global productivity of assets, maybe quadruple them, you know, who knows how it'll all pan out in the future. So I think it's a great thing, absolutely. Having said that, you know, in our days, we never called it platforms. But, you know, when organized retail started in the world, that was also a platform. After all, somebody made the merchandise and somebody bought the merchandise. And the retailer was just a platform guy. So he had a little shop and you put somebody's merchandise and somebody came and bought it. So those, you know, the concept has been around in a physical world for, you know, several decades and, you know, hundreds of years. So it's not in that sense new in my view. The key question in my mind, however, is that what happens to these platforms over a period of time? Because if you have no core competency in a business and your core competency is providing a technical platform, and you know, I just heard it just now, but every time I meet a person who's in the digital business or who's in the platform business, they always say, I'm in the digital business, I'm not in the retailing business, for instance. So my old competitors from Snapdeal or Flipkart, or when I ask them, they say, I'm not in retail, I'm in the digital business. And I keep wondering whether that is the right paradigm for that.
How do you see the whole business of content creation and content consumption, especially with the so-called millennials being the real target and the growth of video, mobile that you talked about earlier? Tell us a bit about your learnings from building this.
Okay, I'm a bit of a digital newbie because just been around after doing many years of television. Learnings, one of the learnings and one of the things that we decided to do when we stepped out was that the brand has to be, or the content has to be where the readers are. So if we can not have the ego or the sort of possessiveness of the brand and have your content where your reader is, then maybe that's the first, when you're starting at ground zero, that's stage
that's
one.
an important thing I think you're saying. Can you explain that a bit so that we understand what you mean by that?
So we figured that very different to, you know, in our earlier avatar where we were running English news channels where the audiences were largely 45 plus, and therefore they had, they had their work day and then they had their content consumption part of the day. This audience, we realize, is consuming through the day. It's prime time all the time and everything is news. It's not just political or current affairs, which is news, but a new mobile phone being out is news, and Farhan Akhtar divorcing his wife is news, and everything is news, and it must come to them as is. But where are they? Are they going to keep coming to your product? No, they're not. They're on social media. They're constantly on the mobile phones. While you cannot be whipping out your newspaper or your television set out of your pockets and sort of consuming it on the side, you can be doing that with the mobile. So therefore, we need to be on mobile. Then where are they? They are actually on Facebook. They are on Twitter to some extent. There are a lot on Instagram. They're on Snapchat. There are a lot on WhatsApp. So they're on all these social media platforms. So we started, before we became a product, we were on Facebook, which did two things. One is, of course, it gave us access to a huge audience at word go, as against waiting to start our product and waiting for the audience to build tinka one by one. So we had that audience right away. It also sensitized our young team to what is being consumed, what is being commented on, what is being shared, and what needs to be introduced to this audience. Because as one is to just keep providing them what they want. The other is, how can you provide them something that they are not otherwise going to consume, but how do you craft it, write it, visualize it, and provide to this audience, and therefore constantly surprise them with something which they would otherwise not have consumed. So that worked for us, I think, because we have a newsroom now which is very, very sensitized to the audience. As against, again, because it's only so recent, I keep comparing it to my CNN IBA newsroom, where we would presume in an edit meeting what the audience must consume and what the news therefore is. Farhan divorcing his wife would perhaps not make it there. And who is to say that that is whether that is news or whether that is content or not content. And at the same time, we are very surprised to find that this young audience is consuming very complex, very detailed opinion, op-ed. We have two things. We have the Quint, which is the product, which is the content product, and we have Quint Type, which is a platform that we are developing from scratch. And the interesting thing is that it's a kind, we have choice of going with Drupal or WordPress, whatever the existing platforms, but we discovered that none of them was as mobile optimized as we were hoping to be, and none of them were as video optimized as we were hoping to be. So which is why we did the laborious, slow, painful task of building our own tech. And what we've discovered now is that Quint Type, with the Quint showcasing what the Quint Type can do, the Quint Type actually has people reaching out, and we're actually now looking at syndicating Quint Type, the platform, which was not the original plan. That was not part of the plan. The plan was, we need technology which can keep us ahead, and which is why this conversation was very interesting for me to hear, because you see that, and because Quint Type has developed with a very demanding, impatient newsroom saying, we want this and we want that, and no one's thinking of that, but we want to be able to do this. They've actually landed up building a lot of things which otherwise a platform wouldn't have. It has analytics, it has ad serving ability, it's very highly developed personalization engine.
Sure.
So there's got all of that. So I think when product and platform work in tandem, and keep in mind the network as you referred to, I think that's possibly the
So in a way, you are truly a technology company and not a content company in some ways.
Not just a content company.
Where would you place Topper?
So platforms, there are many flavors to platforms. There are if you ask any entrepreneur, he'll give you a different definition of a platform, right? So in our context, what is important for us is creating unlimited access. That's the first thing, right? So school, like Raj said, school is also a platform. It's a platform that works 6 days of the week, 8 hours a day. Students know which geographic location to get to, and teachers also know which. It's a platform there.
Right.
So, and Topper is a different learning platform. So you need unlimited access.
Right.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is infinite scalability without extra cost.
Okay.
Right. So if I have 1,000 students, the next 100 students should not cost me extra. But if you're a school with 1,000 students, to cater to another 100 students, you need another 2 classrooms. So you need
more teachers,
more teachers, right?
Yeah.
So for us, the platform is infinitely scalable at no extra cost. The third part of our platform is network effect. Students want to know where they stand, but if I only have 5 students, they probably don't know where they stand. So I need a lot of students to tell them where they stand. And once we have a lot of students, the remaining students say, I have to go to that point because I will know where I stand. So it's a network effect, right? So you need people, and then because you have people, more people come to you. So that's the third part of our platform. The fourth part, which is not the most major part, but it's a bridge between supply and demand. So there are students who want to consume content in an organized manner, and then there are teachers who want to create content in an organized manner. So teachers earn money on our platform, students pay money to our platform. In the middle, we make money, but it's like a bridge between.
Yeah, and I think that point is the,
So I think these are the four dimensions
so
to our
repeat
platform.
the four again for us.
Unlimited access, be in Chittoor or be in Chandigarh, have access to it 24/7. Infinitely scalable without extra cost of supply, network effect, and then the bridge between supply and demand.
So Ajay, I have to get to you because you are, better late than never. But I think you've got, again, going back to our sort of
lawyers
higher.
are invariably late anyway.
Lawyers are always late. You're saying.
Today's the traffic.
No. I don't mean to. I understand the difficulty of getting here. I look at some of these guys and I feel like they're getting away, right? I mean, if I have to run a news channel or a newspaper, you have FDI restrictions, you have censorship, you have wage restrictions, you have unions. She's creating a new platform where she's not even creating the content, other people are. He's running a school, doesn't have to worry about NOCs and buildings and approvals from all the regulatory authorities. He's running a bank which is not a bank. So what's happening from a regulatory and a policy perspective? I see all these ads and this massive battle with Facebook. I mean, the amount of money they are spending on this. So what are you seeing happening from your perspective?
See, I think obviously the world is changing, but I think we've got to step back, and maybe the place that you and I come from, we've seen many cycles, and I think, of course, this is a huge cycle.
Are we really that old, you think?
Well, I don't, listen, we have three categories in the office: young, quite young, very young. I've said that young I am certainly a part of, you guys can fight for the rest. So that was the caveat. I was only doing you justice since you Mackenzie and Prabhjeet
with friends like you, Ajay.
So first, I think that there is this huge either-or debate, which is like you said, is this going to survive or that going to survive? And maybe because we've seen over the years many cycles. I remember that there was this whole debate of what's going to happen to television. Everything is about streaming. You get everything on on your computer. And one of our friends who used to make computers, Ajay Chaudhary, I asked him once. I said, "This must be great news for you." So he said, "Let me ask you a question. When you're sitting on your computer, how are you sitting?" That's a very daft question here. Why are you asking me that question? It's just, I think, how are you normally when you're before your computer, and how are you normally when you're watching a TV? So at TV, I'm lying down or sitting down, relaxed. Here I'm hunching over. So he says, much I'd like to believe what you say, that computers are going to put TVs out of business, never going to happen. In fact, many years ago, there was this whole convergence bill, if you might remember.
Yes, of course.
There was this debate. Do we need separate regulation for television, radio, internet? And India decided to go from zero to hero. We had no regulation other than for print media and for television. We decided we'll make this bill for everything.
Yeah.
And there was a BT paper which had actually addressed the same issue. And since it's an industry, I've been quite interested in, even they had debated this whole issue. And at the end, the line was, am I ready to throw away my radio and my television? And they said, I think it's a little premature for that. So if you look at this whole cycle, take video streaming when it started, or videos. We said cinemas are out of business. Today, actually, cinemas and multiplexes are
I think your mic may be working this.
Are driving businesses to multiplex, to malls. They are actually the anchor tenant. We thought they were actually out of business as Ajay Bijli and a few others started doing all of that. We had a company like Time Warner, which was so enamored by the pipes of AOL that actually collapsed and went into AOL. So I'm just so, first, I don't think there is ever going to be an either or, and I think the world is going to survive. There's going to be an up and down. There will be some businesses that will suffer more. Yes, Has a Kindle done more to, sort of take away power from the booksellers and publishers? Yes. But overall, will it change the paradigm totally? I'm not so sure. As far as this whole new world is concerned, fortunately, we've been quite a part of it in terms of trying to understand. And frankly, no new legislation, as you know, to address these issues has come up except your payment systems,
Yes.
which is actually the 2007 Act. And is today being implemented for probably 5 or 6 years. It was, just used by some of these people who had the money operations, the money changers, etc. And now, of course, every aggregator, every platform, every marketplace is having to use a nodal account. But if you look at, for example, the marketplace, which I'm quite familiar with, and you raised this issue about people being in retail or not, and there's a huge debate going on in the High Court as well. There is certainly a confusion. And the regulators are struggling. They're all trying to get a piece of the action, rightly or wrongly. You've got the tax authorities, as you know, in Karnataka, who are basically saying there should be VAT. There's a matter going on where the court was a little confused, and which was, of course, misreported by the papers, saying the court says FDI violation by marketplaces. Nothing of the sort. What he had said is, he was told that the government is treating the sellers on the platform, the operators of the marketplace, as sellers and charging VAT from them. So he basically said they can't on the one hand be doing retail and on the other hand not doing retail for FDI purposes.
Right.
So the issue is that regulation cannot define each and every product of technology. And in fact, I'll give you a classic case of how it's misunderstood. So when the government responded in this marketplace debate, they said the term marketplace is not recognized by the FDI policy. Our friends in the Economic Times promptly published an article saying government holds against operators. Financial Express says government gives a great benefit to operators. Economic Times says we must change the law to make these people operate. And we are sitting there and saying, hang on a minute, there is no violation of the law, because I advise one of the large marketplaces. It was set up on the basis of only connecting sellers with customers. The marketplace does practically everything that a physical mall can do. Nothing stops a physical mall from deciding that it wants eyeballs compared to the mall next door and saying, listen guys, I'll give you storage space outside the mall. You keep your excess product there because you only got limited retail space. Secondly, I'll deliver your product for you because I want to take away eyeballs from the next door mall.
Sure.
And I'll give you a discount, or I will contribute to the marketing effort because I want you to drop the prices compared to the next door mall. It's perfectly, everything is within the regulation. But now if you combine all of that, somebody can say, as you said, but they're getting away with there's no regulation regulating these guys. So I think we're hoping regulation will not want to keep pace. And the worry that I have is precisely the point that you made, Raj, but from a different standpoint. That if the digital platforms are seen as the brick and mortar as going to be a basis for their extinction, there will be huge pressure. And the huge pressure is likely or has the great risk of having some knee-jerk reaction from the government. And what I've said at all these platforms, and I'll be very open about it, that the losses that are being suffered are not depreciation losses or amortization. These are real cash losses which need cash funding, which is only going to come from their foreign investors. So unless there is some degree of sort of harmony between physical combining with the digital, if this thing goes off track and there is regulation that actually comes in, it could be very, very adverse to the digital platform. So there needs to be, to my mind, greater sense of harmony of how people can combine the electronic platforms with the aspirations of the brick and mortar. Because if that keeps happening, that you have stores in Khan Market which are going to run out of business, and other people who are getting affected, somewhere or the other they're going to push for regulatory change. And that is a dangerous proposition.
One of the questions that, and this is to the entire panel, and one of the questions that the Davos guys have asked us to kind of deliberate on is corporate social responsibility changing with these new platforms? And I don't think they specifically mean CSR donations or funding or projects, but is there a new kind of corporate social responsibility in these platform models. Do you all feel that from day one as a company, you feel more responsible for the community or the spaces you operate in, beyond just making money or providing the service that you are providing? And I'd love to get some comments quickly.
The way we think of this and the way I've seen this in action, the definition of CSR, Pramath, is changing now to discussion on impact you are having. It's less about the dollars you are putting in, but the impact you can have. As an illustration, at Uber, we recognize that the platform, because it's scalable without adding extra cost, we can deploy it for many other use cases which are critical. Few examples. Chennai floods, as they happened. We realized that many of our customers are opening the app, trying to find a vehicle. Unfortunately, our drivers are also suffering, and therefore the supply was limited. But there we saw an opportunity. How can we help the city? Because there was a bunch of do-gooders who are providing aid, but they didn't know where are the people who need the aid the most. So we actually ran a campaign and said, you open the app, you can choose immediately overnight a button which says, I need help or Uber aid. And we'll have a truck which we procured. We coordinated with a bunch of NGOs and we said, we will take the vehicles to the guys who need it the most. Now here is a platform being used to serve the same purpose, or Delhi's odd even route. Now this is a big agenda to help drive reduction in pollution and congestion. Here's a platform which already is playing a role in transportation. We launched our Uber pool service, which actually encourages people to share a car if they're going in the same direction. And we remove the inefficiencies because the algorithm matches who you should go with. So you don't have to try and pre-plan your trips because that has inefficiency. And as we do this, it also makes a lot of commercial sense because in the process, we are introducing a large number of people to the concept. So the definition is changing. And it's more about impact versus the dollar spent.
Any points you want to add from a?
I just want to understand. I mean, CSR is, you know, still young here. But again, earlier, you know, for instance, we did a campaign at Network 18 with Tata and Power of 49 ahead of the 2014 elections, saying, you know, the women electorate bring up their issues because they are voters, etc. And that was a CSR campaign, but it built a lot of, it was also brand building for Tata Tea. So so it's difficult to fathom.
Separate them.
So where is CSR being CSR and where is CSR being exploited? But we found that the impact of the digital was, recently there was this horrific episode of a 4-year-old child in Keshapuram being brutalized and raped. And we found that the conventional legacy papers, etc., reported that one episode on page 3 or 4, and then it was forgotten. And we got in touch with the family, and we discovered that the child was going through multiple surgeries because she was in a bad state, and realized that the family had no money. So on our digital platform, we started a crowdsourcing saying we called it Choti Nirbhaya because you couldn't reveal identity. And what we found, I mean, it was partly our effort by, you know, taking it up with the government and in ministry, etc. But also the power of the platform. Now, I don't know whether to call this CSR. In about 15 days, we were able to raise 5.5 lakh rupees for this child, which then, you know, given and the child's gone through her subsequent surgeries, etc. Now, is that CSR? Now, which out of these two was CSR, or is neither CSR?
Sure. I think they are touching on both these actually without being pure about the definition when they ask that question. Ajay, you are itching to say something?
I'm sorry, I have a slightly contrarian view. I think spending dollars is also important. I mean, if you clearly talked about creating an impact, we had an issue once of FCRA, you know, what under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, what constitutes charity. And there was a, you know, question that is it what you end up doing if, you know, the product you make, or is it about just pure charity? And I said, if it's about what you start differentiating with product, then anybody who makes Hawaii Chappal actually does the maximum amount of charity because he makes something for the poorest to the poor. So I don't think it's enough to say that it's about impact. Impact is important. You're connecting people, you're helping people raise money. But I think CSR as an activity of parting with your own money is a very important thing, because we have to have enough CSR, and the younger generation, which is doing well very much faster than all of us, probably it took us much longer, I think must continue to contribute towards charity in the form of actually creating the kind of schools and colleges some of the businesses have done and some of them continue to do. So I think that it's not enough to just say that we've created connectivity and we've got people collecting money on television. I think it has to be more than that.
Well, thanks for introducing some controversy here, but Zishaan, you wanted to add to that?
Well, yeah, there are two ways to look at it. If you're talking about dollars, then it's pretty clear cut, right? So if you make profits, 2% of your profits go to charity, clear cut. But if we part that aside for a bit, I think CSR in today's internet companies is a borrowed concept and not really relevant. If you purely look at it from an impact perspective, for example, Tata, creating employment and then saying in the villages we'll create some more employment, so let's do that. But Uber is already creating an open employment platform where anybody with a car can come be an entrepreneur, right? A university is saying we have all these MBA students, we make tons of profit, let's send some of that to schools in a village. Topper is creating a platform that is on day one equally accessible to everyone.
Give away some of that valuation to build some more schools.
Sure, the day we have profit.
Every microfinance business is, because they're giving loans to the poor, but they're doing it for interest.
Raj, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make this point and then I have to go. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I know.
I just, but I think from my perspective on CSR, there are 2 points I want to make. One is I think this whole digitization and platform creation, I think is driving efficiency in the business world.
Yeah.
And that means we can do more for less. And that means there is an inherent, CSR, if you like, from a global planet standpoint, because we are consuming less resources to get more done in the world,
Right, reducing
including
pollution, whatever.
So, I mean, there's that angle to it which we cannot forget. And I think, that's, I salute all the people, the young people who are doing all that, whether it was by design or default. The other thing I think, especially in a country like India, which is relevant is, every time businesses go digital, they become more compliant and more transparent. And I think that's a very important point. Because, when you do business digitally, you can never hide incomes, cash flows, compliance and so on and so forth. So I think over a period of time, this whole platform creation and digital businesses will help this country become much more compliant, as opposed to what was in the past. And both are, I think, very important and good things for our society in general.